Greetings, everyone. It's Dr. Mordecai here, and welcome back to Discovering Your Mission, the show where we unpack the stories, strategies, and soul behind some of today's most visionary leaders. Today's guest is someone I have long admired, a true trailblazer in higher education and workforce innovation, President Tracy Hartzler, the dynamic leader of Central New Mexico Community College. Under her leadership, CNM has become one of the most forward-thinking colleges in the nation, aligning industry, education, and community to build the workforce of the future. In this episode, President Hartzler shares her journey from public service and government policy to the presidency, how she led through the pandemic with grace and grit, and what it really takes to build the sustainable ecosystem that serves both learners and local economies. So wherever you are, whether exercising, working, or winding down, get ready for a conversation filled with wisdom, purpose, and possibility. Let's jump in. Greetings, everybody. Once again, it's Dr. Mordecai here for Discovering Your Mission. Today's guest is someone who I admire her leadership, been observing her leadership for quite some time, and she does some amazing work, and we're going to learn more about that on today. I have with us President Tracy Hartzler, the president of Central New Mexico Community College. How are you doing, Madam President?
Doing great. Can't think of a better way to spend some time than with a fellow leader and share lessons and insights and learn from you. So it's fun.
Thank you. I'll tell you, the heart of the show is, there were so many times where I would go to these different conferences and you're meeting people in passing, but the average attendant doesn't get a chance to really learn from who may be giving the keynote, who may be on the panel. And today is just a day I really want to jump in and ask you some questions, because as I've seen you around the country, these are some things that are on my own personal mind. And I can only imagine whoever is watching this and listening to this, this is going to support their journey as well. So let's start here.
Thank you.
Could you share the path that led you to community college leadership, and what were the early experiences that shaped your sense of mission in education and public service?
Sure. So I would say my commitment to public service, which includes serving in education, started when I was a kid. I mean, I'm a family of faith, and my family valued education, and they sacrificed for me to go to. I went to my local Catholic elementary school, where we focused on service to community and service to others, and that continued throughout my educational journey. While I didn't attend community colleges, that was always a focus of my experiences going to school. And so there's no question that I would lead a life of service in some way, shape, or form. And what that meant was I was able to serve and work with high school leaders and a high school membership organization, and worked for a mentoring program for high school students. I was a fundraiser for a high school at one time. Then I was able to go to law school, and I worked for Native American tribes, bands and nations. And so I was able to serve governments, tribal governments, and work in government at one time in the U.S. Senate. And so again, always giving back to helping individuals, I would say, improve their lives, and also communities improve their lives, and do that at a really local level, but also a national level. And I had the great opportunity to come to New Mexico, where I'm not originally from New Mexico, and so I've been here 15 years. But I worked for state agencies. I was able to work for the state legislative finance committee, which is where I got to really work with incredible institutions across our state, whether it's the Research One University of New Mexico or New Mexico Tech Institute, or a number of community colleges, including CNM. And so I was able to join CNM. I'm celebrating my 10th year, and I'm in my 6th year in this role. And I came from a finance and operations side. So, and because I worked in government relations and worked with government and in government quite a bit, that helped me really prepare me for, I'd say, this role at this institution, which, given our budget and our lead-in policy and the expectation of my board, which is to work with our stakeholders, which includes our community and local elected officials. It just happened to be a great opportunity, and I worked for a great president, Kathy Winograd. And so, I mean, I was exposed to great leaders across the field, and I just learned that I need to give back and lead. And that's what I get to do every day, just like you do. So I have so many of our colleagues.
Outstanding. I feel like if someone was watching this, they're like, Mordecai, you got to ask this follow-up. you just laid out so many transferable skills and the path that you were on, but you were able
Yep.
to translate those skills into being a college president.
Yep.
Let me just ask this from an advice standpoint. What advice do you have for those that are saying, well, I did not go the traditional track of being a community college president, yet here is someone who was able to transition into it? What does that advice look like, Madam President?
Yeah, I think you're looking at the transferable skills are pretty clear. Being able to problem solve, being able to work with others to solve problems or identify challenges, work on solutions together, build alliances, being able, and all of that leads to, that means you can communicate effectively, you can have conversations, you can give presentations, you can relate to all different types of people, which is so important, I think, in this role. I mean, I was working with tribal chairs, tribal leaders, U.S. senators, state senators,
Yeah.
cabinet secretaries, acequia domos, who are heads of their local acequia or water ditch association. I mean, so it was a range of communities and populations. And all of that leads you to how you can participate in a college setting, but certainly as a community college president. Always that need, you might not know from these answers, but to try to be succinct and to really relate to the person you're with, identify what the issue is, can you be helpful? One, can you just have empathy and understand what they're sharing? Two, is there a way to join in a relationship to help lead to a change, to an improvement, or to more services? And then, the joy of being able to work on some challenging issues together. That absolutely is what we do in college leadership. So, and then frankly, being able to take advantage of opportunities that are presented to you, and show competency and test those skills, make mistakes, learn from those and move on. So all of that I think is really critical in being able to serve as a college leader and certainly as president. And as you noted, I'm not the traditional leader. So, and I think what makes me unique is that I'll just say most of my cabinet is not from higher ed. Only my vice president for education and learning and my vice president for enrollment management, student success come from higher ed. Everybody else comes from government, private industry, other sectors where they bring their expertise to bear. That actually helps us look at other options and think differently maybe about our model and what we do. And I think that's distinct. And I probably, and I've certainly learned that from other jobs I've had. So that's probably distinct and not something other presidents might highlight in their experience.
I love it. I love it. I love it. When you assumed the presidency at Central New Mexico, what were your top priorities? And you came in the presidency before the pandemic, right? So I can only imagine that your priorities that you initially had totally were transitioned or transformed, I should say,
Yeah.
transformed due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now we're in a post-pandemic reality with a lot of environmental factors that are impacting what we do day in and day out. What do the priorities look like now, Tracy?
Well, let's just say whatever I said in the interview sessions to get the job are not what I anticipated, 8 months later, right? So I was selected in October, and these processes go from July until, they're like 4 or 5 month processes, right? So whatever I said in July and then in October, and then when I was selected in November to when I assumed the presidency, January 2020, they're not the same. When I assumed the presidency, I thought that I would be continuing the strategic planning work that the college started and that I led in my prior role as vice president for finance and operations. That plan was pretty broad and was a framework for a new leader, whoever that new president might be. So I thought, and then usually new presidents, you start listening to people, you get to know your community, you get to learn the job differently. We jumped right into a legislative session, which is something for me I was quite familiar with, but during that legislative session, those first 3 months of that presidency, well, that's when we had a lot of social unrest, right, with George Floyd, a lot of violence. We had a political recession because of the pandemic, and so our volatility in our state revenues was incredible, and 40% of this college's operating budget rests on state revenues. So when you start looking at a lot of uncertainty, and then the pandemic hit, and that was just, obviously not something we could have anticipated. So what I interviewed on was let's continue momentum in the right direction that we're in, right? The usual student success, community success, organizational excellence. What didn't change during the pandemic was that we're still going to lead with our values and our mission, our vision. Changing lives, building community. Pretty straightforward. We're going to care about learners. We're going to care about our community. And we're going to do it in a way in our organization that we're going to care about our employees, and we're going to be financially sustainable. And of course, we know there wasn't a recipe for dealing with that collection of events and the duration of the pandemic. And we were in a pretty conservative state in New Mexico in that we really had very strict health restrictions and practices for us for about a year and a half to 2 years. So I just would say that what developed over time, I did a quick planning regroup process in about a year, set some targets for 2025, which as you know is now. We accomplished those frankly by 2023, which is great. But that included some reorganization internally, again, to better serve our students. And frankly, our students, and it didn't matter if they come from workforce training or professional credit side to our college or degree side, but really, how do we help our students? How do we help our employees leverage the technology we've got? And really, how do we better serve our community and our employers? And that required us to simplify a lot of our work, make it easy for learners to have a one-stop shop, different than the one we currently had, the one-stop shop for employers. So it just helped us refine what we needed to do to be more responsive. That was really great fortune. And that built on, like, we were already a futures-led community. We're familiar with futures thinking. We were already investing in a new LMS in January 2020 is a lousy idea, but it took us 3 years to get there. So, I mean, it was still going, but just we were on the journey of what does it mean to help change how our students and our faculty and our staff are using technology. So I'd say we continued on a journey, but it got sped up and we had to make some other changes. So, data informed. I would also say for my leadership style, though, it really amplified, I think, for many of us who were successfully led during the pandemic, which means we're still leading in a way, and we're still choosing this role. It's because we learned how to lead with a team. We were consistent with our culture and our values. The board gave us direction, but we reported to them on a regular basis. We had solid governing board support, and we really encouraged employees at all levels to participate in the work we were doing and to find ways to help. And that was different than a more hierarchical decision approach and organizational approach than we had just really had before the pandemic. So it really changed leadership style, leadership structure, the reliability of partners. Boy, the role of partners came in quickly, whether it was your health system or state government or federal government at the time. So, the partnerships were critical to coming out of that pandemic. I don't want another one, but I would say it really did shape the goals. Values were the same, but the outcomes were different, and I wouldn't have anticipated them when I started. So
now I would only imagine now as time is going on, we're in 2025. It's hard to believe we're in October that we're recording this, even though this episode is going live for November. But there is all of the environmental factors that are shaping your particular community there in central New Mexico. Can you share with us some wisdom as to just a bit of what is happening in and around your communities? But the real question that I have for you is what advice do you have for how you have been able to align employer needs, economic changes, what the institution needs to do in order to be responsive? What does that picture look like for you all?
Sure. So C&M is that's how we refer to ourselves, C&M. We're a Hispanic serving institution, minority serving institution. And what does that mean? It means we serve our population. It's really straightforward. Majority of our students are Latino, Hispanic. A significant number are Native American or Indigenous. So we just serve who we serve, right? In our area. That's easy to say. However, given the context we're in and operating in, that's required us to make some changes, and we changed. We went through a 5-month process to think about how do we still want to value inclusiveness and serving all students, no matter who they are, so we're consistent with our open access mission. So we have an office of cultural an office of organizational culture and effectiveness. That's how we're focusing on data and information to really help serve our community. So and that leadership style we modeled actually after Colorado College. So we have representatives from HR, faculty, student services, data. They're working with our OCE office to help us look at how we serve our particular populations here in central New Mexico. Again, I mentioned some of our community groups, but certainly we have veterans, we have single parents, so we're using information to do that. That matters for us. That's come into sharper focus in the last couple of years. So we're talking about how do we serve our community. There's no question that during the pandemic, we realized we needed to help employers. We need to give them a one-stop shop. We're a big organization. We have about 1,500 employees. We have, we serve roughly 25,000 learners a year. We can't expect employers to figure out how we work. We needed to create a division called Workforce and Community Success, similar to what other institutions have done. And that really is the one-stop shop for all employers who can help develop our programs, whether they're workforce training or professional credit or our credit programs. So revising that program review process, but also how can we help them get their employees grow work-based learning, and frankly, leverage some significant state funding that's come to us for workforce development. So for us, we've been able to serve employers by making it easier for them to contact with us, show them the data of the programs that we're developing with them. What does that mean for retention? What does that mean for your employee retention? What does that mean for wage growth? What does that mean at the end of the day for our community growth in terms of our tax revenue? When you have more people participating in the economy, you're going to have greater taxes and you're going to have greater financial stability. So we focus on employers by working with them to provide services that they value. And we survey them annually to also say, what are we doing well? Where could we improve? And we really appreciate the hundreds of partners we have to make sure we're responsive to them. Because that's part of our strategic plan. And one of the goals is to make sure we have community vibrancy, and that includes our employer success.
What do you see to be the strengths and pitfalls of the marketplace models in higher education? Now you've given us a sense of what's happening in your community in central New Mexico, C&M, but give us a deeper sense now in terms of how you all are scanning the national marketplace in higher education, and what do you think are the strengths, the pitfalls, things that you just want to elevate in this moment, and how we can best serve our learners?
Sure. So we're always looking for data sources, and we're always looking for ways to serve the population of learners we're not serving currently. We have about 200,000 individuals in our region and around Albuquerque that have not earned their high school diploma or have earned high school with no college or high school and some college. So we know there's a large population of, I'd say, underserved individuals. We participate, we're a founding college in a skills to jobs marketplace called Unmuddle. Unmuddle is a B corporation that has a number of colleges engaged, but works very closely with employers and sector associations, particularly around advanced manufacturing, to help employers articulate and determine what their workforce needs are, to help learners who are often underserved by their college population at their colleges for a variety of reasons. College is intimidating. College can be challenging to access for many individuals. So ways to help individuals seeking more learning know that they can gain skills, that an employer knows that when you've gotten those skills, you can get a job, and that the community college is a partner in providing that training. So we're partnering with organizations like Unmuddle to help us learn what is it that employers are frankly asking of us that frankly my employer down the street may not tell me directly. So we're getting that information differently from employers. We're learning different ways that the learners who are seeking an online or a competitive marketplace, if you will, for other learning, what are they valuing and what are the services they need, and what's the data that Unmuddle, in this case, Unmuddle can provide to a college like us to help us with our programming. How do we redesign supports? How do we simplify our processes that have gotten pretty complicated over 60 years? So we use other marketplaces and other industries to help us better assess our services, our programming, and we really focus on ways to work with, I would say, national employers that have a local presence in Albuquerque. So Amazon is one of our close partners. We develop national programming for them. And I sit on a board with one of their leaders to help determine and help articulate what's the programming needed, how can I grow my enrollment, how can I serve these hundreds of thousands of people in my community or in others, leverage educational benefits that Amazon provides their employees in programming that helps individuals and, frankly, either move up at Amazon or move to another manufacturing sector or another industry partner or employer that needs those skills. So I'm always looking for external clues from employers like an Amazon or Intel or others who are looking to expand, who are looking to share information with another party that they wouldn't necessarily tell me, at the local Chamber of Commerce breakfast. I'll also know that I work very closely with some of our large employers here, and I sit on their boards. And I am increasingly aware that no matter how good C&M is, we need an ecosystem here of probably employer-supported training and C&M and probably some other parties doing training to meet the extensive workforce need that we have in our community. We can't do it alone at C&M, and I've realized that we need to be good partners with employers, but also employers need some stability and some certainty for their own workforce that they're spinning up some programs as well. So I don't want to say I cede ground to these other employers that I'm close with, but I know that they have a business need that they're going to come to us, but they also have to find some other ways to generate that workforce pipeline they need. So I think it's having that realization. In certain industries, you have to partner and recognize you need a bigger ecosystem. Probably in others, we will still be the primary source of workforce. But I think there's some ways to learn those lessons. And where is it that you as an institution can make a very distinct choice and lay claim to the field of you are the expert in training, knowing that probably others have to supplement what you're doing as well.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. I know that we're short on time. I'll tell you, 20 minutes has a way of going pretty quickly. Let me see if I can get two more questions in here. The last question being the mission question that we ask all of our guests. Yeah. But before that, looking ahead 5 to 10 years from now, what shifts, threats for you matter most for community colleges? And how is your institution preparing to address what's going to be perhaps a reality 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think there are a couple ways we do it. One, I want to say I really want to applaud the American Association of Community Colleges for their report on Resilient by Design and the toolkit that's coming out to support that. And that toolkit will help us lead conversations at our campus and probably across our state in helping to frame helping to understand the challenges facing our institutions and our communities and what's our institutional role in helping to address those challenges. So, we're always looking at resources not only in higher ed, and again, I appreciate that report, but I look at other leading industries, whether it's healthcare, manufacturing. I'm always customer service organizations. I'm always looking for ways that they are trying to leverage technology, value human interaction, input, and ingenuity into what we do to make sure that we're trying to stay on a I don't want to say the bleeding edge, but on the leading edge of being responsive to industry. So a lot of co-development, feedback, iteration of programs and data so that we can always improve what we're providing. I think that's critical to anybody's success. If you're not adapting, I don't know how much longer you can actually lead in that space or serve your community in certain ways. So I think that's pretty tough. So continuing to change is really important. Lean and learn from others is lean in, but learn from others. And frankly, I think we probably have to be selective about what we do as an institution. I can't be everything to everybody, but we can certainly partner with leading organizations around housing and healthcare. And we just have to partner in different ways where we can all bring our strengths together to move forward. I think in higher ed, the collaborative we have in New Mexico, Collaborative for Higher Education Shared Services, that's how 6 of us, community colleges, independently governed, have gotten together to say we need to change our business processes. We need to create some redundancy and backstops, particularly for our rural colleges. But we need to partner to change our processes, to implement a new finance HR payroll system and a new student information system. And how can we leverage the collective of 100 to 200 employees across 6 colleges undertaking this work? So that, again, that's transformational change. It's something I could have done on our own at C&M. So much more valuable for our state and our community if we're doing this in conjunction with 5 other colleges to better serve communities throughout the state. So those are a couple ways where I think partnership, leadership, collaboration matters. And that's, I think, what makes us more resilient and responsive over time.
Well, you have provided some amazing insight over our time together. You know, the name of the show is called Discovering Your Mission. I love to ask all of my guests. I'm a firm believer that there is something that is driving this work within us all, especially given the amount of sacrifice and preparedness and day in and day out and all the behind the scenes that go into this work. You got to be called to do it, especially stick around and keep doing it. And so I would love to ask you at this time, as part of our final question, our time together to conclude it, please share with the audience, what is your personal mission statement and why?
Yeah, well, I would say the mission statement today, because mine morphs over time. I just think it's basically apply my skill and talent and position to improve the lives of individuals and better my community, working together with my community. And to be able to do that, frankly, with humility, grace, and humor. I mean, that means I'm living consistent with my values and my upbringing and what I find valuable to society and giving back. So I know that's why I get up every day. I think that's why a lot of us who work in community colleges get up every day, and how fortunate we are that we get to do that.
Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, President Tracy Hartzler, President of Central New Mexico Community College. Thank you so much for your time, Madam President.
Great to be here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
What an incredible conversation with President Tracy Hartzler. Her journey reminds us that leadership is not about titles or traditions. It's about service, courage, and collaboration. Here are 3 key takeaways from today's episode. Leadership is transferable. No matter your path, the ability to problem solve, communicate, and build alliances can translate into transformational leadership, even beyond traditional higher ed pathways. Secondly, partnership is power. C&M's success is rooted in collaboration with employers, government, and other colleges, proving that sustainable progress happens when we align missions, not just budgets. Last but not least, mission must evolve. As President Hartzler shared, her personal mission continues to grow, to apply her skills, talent, and position to improve lives and strengthen her community with humility, grace, and humor. If this episode inspired you, visit itsdrmordecai.com to explore more episodes, read thought-provoking articles, and access resources designed to help you lead with purpose, serve with impact, and keep discovering your mission. Until next time, keep walking in purpose, and remember, the world needs what only you can give. Take care.